Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Goulston, the Chair of Kent Community Health NHS Foundation Trust. Welcome to our annual general meeting and annual members meeting. We're recording this event and we will put it onto our website as soon as we can after the meeting. I understand there's at least 90 people have signed up to join our live stream. I know many of them are our governors, so welcome to members of the public. Welcome to our governors who have joined the meeting virtually. We have had some questions that we've received in advance of the meeting, but if any of you who are watching this live, if any of you would like to post a question, you can go to the chat room and put your question there, and we will pick it up at the end of this session. So we have some films to show you in terms of reflections of the year, including some reflections on our finances. We have a short introductory film and some opening remarks from myself. We have the lead governor, Carol Coleman, will be presenting her report on the year. Mairead McCormick, sitting next to me, will be presenting a chief executive's view of the year and a look forward. We'll be having a presentation on the film on the annual accounts, and then there'll be an opportunity at the end for a question and answer session at the end of the event. I think before we start with our introductory film, I think it's important that for those of you who are live listening and watching the AGM and the AMM, for you to know who's in the room. So as this is the hybrid meeting, so we're going to start with our chair of the Quality Committee introducing herself and go around the table and everyone could introduce themselves.
Hello everyone, my name is Pippa Barber. I'm one of the non-executive directors and I chair the Quality Committee.
Hi everyone, I'm Jill Jacobs. I'm Deputy Finance Director and I'm here on behalf of Gordon Flack this afternoon.
Hello, my name is Georgia Denegri. I'm the Interim Trust Secretary.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Saif Kavanagh and I'm the Deputy Chief Nurse and I'm representing Dr. Mercia Spare this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ali Carruth. I'm Director for Patient Experience, Participation and Health Inequalities.
Peter Conway, Non-Exec Director and Chair of the Audit Committee.
Kim Lowe, Non-Exec and Chair of the Workforce Committee.
Hello, my name is George Salmon, Director of Strategy and Partnership.
Pauline Butterworth, Chief Operating Officer.
Carol Coleman, Lead Governor.
Hello everyone, I'm Victoria Robinson-Collins, Director of People and Organisational Development.
And I'm Mairead McCormick, the Chief Exec.
John Goulston, Chair.
Nigel Turner, hello, NED and Chair of the Charitable Funds Committee.
Karen Taylor, Non-Exec.
Hi everybody, Paul Butler, Non-Exec Director and Chair of the Finance Committee.
And we have one of our board members, Associate Board Member Razia Sharif, who's online with us virtually.
Yes, hello, my name is Dr. Razia Sharif and I'm an Associate NED and I sit on the Quality Committee and the Charitable Funds Committee.
Thanks, Razia. We have apologies, as you gathered, from Mercia Spare and Gordon Flack, but also from Sarah Phillips, our Medical Director, and from the governors, we've got apologies from Jill Harris, who's our Public Governor for Sevenoaks. With that, can I just ask, are there any declarations of interest? Any new declarations of interest from any board members? No? The minutes of our meeting held on the 23rd of September 2021. Are there any points of accuracy that anyone would like to raise? And apologies for getting these out rather late in the day. I've gone through the minutes and I'm content with them. Carol, on your behalf, as it were.
Thank you.
So let's accept the minutes from our meeting on the 23rd of September 2021, and we'll do better in terms of getting the minutes from today's meeting out earlier for everybody to sign up. And just before we move to our film, I think it's important that we acknowledge that actually there are quite a few changes on the board today in comparison with our AGM a year ago on the 23rd of September. We've got 5 new members of the board that are with us. We also have changes in terms of our governance as well. So actually, in doing so, I'd like to thank some of the people who aren't here, and then welcome people who are here, as it were. So I'd like to thank, in particular, I'd like to record my thanks to Paul Bentley in his role as Chief Executive at Kent Community Health NHS Foundation Trust. Paul was the Chief Executive for 6 years and absolutely moved the organisation forward. And Paul's moved on to bigger and greater things that as Chief Executive of the Integrated Care Board for Kent and Medway ICB, and we wish him all the best. And he's the right person to take Kent and Medway forward as a system. I'd also like to thank, on the governance side in particular, David Price was our lead governor throughout the last financial year, and Sue Plummer was our deputy lead governor. And they'd both been doing that for a number of years, and their term of office finished. And I'd like to record, and I'm sure Carol would echo that, my thanks to David and Sue, who did excellent. And I found their advice and support really helpful. And I'd like to thank David and Sue. And of course, we've got our new Chief Exec, Mairead McCormick, here. So welcome to Mairead, welcome to Victoria as Director of People, welcome to Kim, Karen and Razia, our new non-execs and associate non-execs, and welcome to Ali joining the board officially, our back board officially. So that's the sort of thank yous and welcome. We've now got a film that just gives us a snapshot of last year, and then I've got a few opening remarks, and then I'm going to pass over to Carol. So if we could show our first film, please.
I really want to make a difference to lived experience in the organisation.
Getting those conversations started and getting those discussions happening, and giving people that time to reflect and taking time away from work to come here, because it's really important to think about inclusion.
It feels so amazing. We are the first set and we are not stopping now. We're going higher and higher.
This uniform means something to people, and it means a lot to me. You know, it symbolises integrity, honesty, trust, compassion. And for me, that's a big responsibility. So when I put on my uniform every day, they're the things that I'm automatically geared to try and do.
The roles in the community is changing. I feel like what we used to do, say 6-7 years ago, is completely different. You never feel like you have done enough for the patient. You want to strive even more.
We can make a real difference every time we go in and see that patient to make sure that they're getting the best care possible.
For a deaf person during this time is so tough because a lot of deaf people rely on lip reading, and I was so scared and worried going to have my vaccine. It's not just getting my vaccine done, it's about how people are going to communicate me, or are they going to move the map. She went away and she came back and she had a clear face shield. I thought, oh, perfect, it's going to make my life so much easier. And also, I was quite impressed that she had an iPad, and it says there, do you want to ring for an interpreter? I thought that would massively help deaf people. Like, normally we feel like we're left out, like there's not enough deaf awareness out there. But since I went to the vaccine on Sunday, it just helps a lot. Well done to all the staff, and I am so proud of them, how they treated me on Sunday. Thank you so much.
So just a few words from me before I pass over to Carol in terms of reflections on the year, and just building on that film, and in particular, Mercia mentioned 3 or 4 things that really resonate with her when she wears her uniform. So just 3 things. In 2021, on the 23rd of December, I talked about the year in the context of being traumatic, COVID, about our staff's resilience and about our staff's innovation in terms of new ways of working. And I was reflecting on what did I think 12 months on. So the 3 words I've come up with are fair, kind, and collaborate. You might think the third one doesn't quite go with the first 2. And rather than give my take on why fair, kind, and collaborate, I picked out from one of our physiotherapists, Pilar. She occasionally does a blog which goes on our internal intranet, and we can all see it. And in the summer, she moved from our learning disabilities team after 10.5 years to our children's therapy team. And Pilar, I was really impressed with her blog, and it sort of sums up in what I think what it really means to me in terms of fair, kind, and collaborate. So she said she was happy for me to refer to her blog today. So I'd just like to do that now. And Pilar says in her blog, thank you to the Learning Disabilities team as I leave you after 10.5 years to join the Children's Therapy team. And there are 7 reasons why that Pilar gives in her blog why she loves the Learning Disabilities team. 1, their dedication. 2, their friendship. 3, their excellence. 4, the fire in their belly. 5, their advocacy. 6, their creativity and fun. And 7, their leadership in both the good times and the bad times. And I thought that was a very apt description for me of what it feels like for our staff and people in the organisation. And just in terms of FAIR, I'd just like to dwell on one of the things that she said in terms of the 5th item there, which is their advocacy. She quotes Martin Luther King. And she said, and Martin Luther King said, and this is from Pilar's blog, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. And I think in terms of fair and kind, we should just, that those words I think still resonate today. So I thank Pilar for her words there. And she says in terms of that Martin Luther King quote that from working in the learning disabilities, she has a deep understanding of what that phrase, what Martin Luther King said there and what it means. And just in terms of kind, in my sort of visits that I've managed to do in the last year, and as always, not as many as I would have liked to have undertaken, but I was struck by when I asked the question of what's going well and what we could do better, and is there anything in particular we could do. One member of staff said to me that their message, they said, John, my message to you and everyone in the trust is, can we just be kind to one another? Because in the hurly-burly of work, we sometimes lose that. So I thought that was a really important statement. And then finally, in terms of collaboration, there's lots of examples that I could pick out. Pauline and I sit on the West Kent Healthcare Partnership Board, and there's good examples of collaboration there that we could pick out. Mairead and Gerard could pick out examples from the East Kent Healthcare Partnership that they both sit on. But I'm going to pick out on an example from North Kent, where we do provide specialised adult care services and children's services. And it's from my service visit to our tuberculosis service, and Kate, who took me round for the morning, I spent them with her. And I was really struck when we went into the Darrant Valley Hospital, had an outpatient, she organised a room for herself to do an outpatient appointment with someone who was homeless. And you could really see the collaboration in practice around someone's pathway, as it were, because she spoke about, we covered Kent Community's role and what her role was with this individual patient, the hospital's role and how they were supporting part of the care. Dartford Borough Council and their housing department was involved in this gentleman, and in fact they then managed to find a place for him, and Kent County Council's social services. And I thought it was a good example of, we talk about collaboration between organisations, but clearly there's enormous collaboration about each that we see, treat and care for, and I thought that was a good example of that. And then we went on to visit a family where not only were the parents unfortunately had TB, but also their daughter, who was under 2, who had TB. And she was receiving special care from the Evelyn Hospital in St Thomas's Hospital, as part of Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Foundation Trust. And again, you could see the collaboration between the specialised service there to what Kate was doing as our community on the community services, and also we talked about the interface with the GP and primary care. So I just thought they were just 2 examples just from one visit of collaboration. And we often talk at a system level about collaboration, but it's happening on the ground. And how can we make it even smoother for the people we see, treat and care for is clearly one of our challenges. Final thing I'd just like to mention in terms of fair, kind and collaborate or collaboration, is that I attended recently a charitable funds committee, and there, in terms of the cost of living crisis that we have, the committee agreed in principle to a hardship fund for our staff, and we're just dotting I's and crossing T's on that. But I think that's important in terms of supporting staff, and you'll hear more about other ways we're doing that, supporting staff currently. So I think that's more than enough from me. So I'm going to pause there, and we're going to now pass on to our Council of Governors annual report, and I welcome our lead governor, Carol Coleman.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to talk to you on behalf of the Trust Governors who've worked hard this year to ensure your voice is heard and your interests and input are reflected. I've been the public governor for Dover and Deal since 2016, and in April this year I was elected as a new governor for the council, new lead governor for the council. But like John, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank David Price and Sue Plummer, not only for their roles as lead and deputy, but for they've been governors for 6 and I think 8 years respectively, and did an awful lot to ensure that the Council of Governors works. On behalf of the Council of Governors, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the staff and the volunteers for all their hard work and the extraordinary way in which they responded throughout the pandemic, but also that they continue to do so. They all continue to go the extra mile for us. At the end of 21-22, we saw the departure of 3 governors, just by the normal turnover, and I'm pleased to welcome 3 in their place. As well as those, we have also appointed 2 new appointed governors, Paula Kirsten from Kent University and Anne Jane Gosh, who's the Public Health Director for Kent County Council. As John also said, we have seen the departure of Paul Bentley as our Chief Exec, and as a council would like to thank him for his support throughout those 6 years, as well as Bridget Skelton, who, as the Senior Independent Director, offered invaluable advice throughout her tenure. This council welcomes our new CEO and look forward to supporting her and her board going forward. Last year, the Trust took on the lead for the delivery of COVID vaccine across Kent, and I'm pleased to say that several public governments are very active at the vaccination hubs in various roles, and one continues to carry out this important service, delivering vaccines to patients. Whilst the pandemic restrictions were in place, governors were very active across the Trust, contributing to the newly formed Patient and Carer Council and Forum, as well as the Trust board meetings. As a council, we embrace the use of technology, although not easy sometimes, and participation from governors actually increased as we were able to join more meetings virtually. Once restrictions were lifted, governors were able to get out and about, speaking to local people and our own staff about the services the Trust provides and get an understanding of your experiences. It was a busy and productive year, despite the obvious constraints. We participated in a number of WeCare visits when restrictions allowed, and other service visits and to various hospitals. We also attended other Trust and community events, like the opening of our Dementia Cafe in Sevenoaks. We continue to work hard with the communications team to ensure governors are afforded every opportunity to talk to local people, our staff, other partner organisations, and where possible, to get out into the community at events. The governors work behind the scenes in various ways, and examples of what we have been up to are included in the latest edition of the Trust Community Health magazine. The majority of those sitting on the Council of Governors are members of the public. However, our staff governors have a slightly more difficult role to play, and I'd just like to reflect on the thoughts of one of them. The role of the staff governor has been extremely interesting with regards to developing, understanding, and the wider KCHFT organisation. So it's been a real opportunity to increase my knowledge personally and professionally. It's not without challenge, however. Being a conduit for receiving and raising issues that are extremely important to the workforce, we serve whilst at the same time being an employee of the Trust. This can be a difficult road to navigate. I feel strongly that the staff governors are a valuable group who are extremely passionate and supportive of the Trust and the workforce within the services we represent. To mention just a few other things that the Council of Governors has got up to over the past year, we've met 4 times a year. We meet 4 times a year, and you're very welcome to attend these public meetings, and it might give you a little insight into what we do. We hope to offer access to these meetings virtually in the future. We serve on various committees to conduct our role effectively. We participated in the Winter Well campaign, where some of our clinicians and experts shared advice on keeping well during winter via the Trust social media platforms. The campaign was so well received that it is the intention to hold something similar in person this winter. And I know that has now been confirmed, so look out for an advert coming your way. This year in particular, the Governors also approved the extension of the Trust auditors for a further 2 years. We approved the appraisal process for the Chair and non-executive directors, sat on the Trust Staff Awards judging panel, participated in the stakeholder event for the recruitment of 2 new non-executive directors and an associate non-exec. And in March, we had the privilege to participate in the stakeholder event for the recruitment of the new chief exec and the lead governor and deputy governor on the final interview panel. We also approved a constitutional change to increase the term of elected governors from 6 years to 9 consecutive years, hence the reason why I'm still here. Although public governors are elected by members of the Trust, we hope to represent every resident within the Trust boundaries. All governors are volunteers. We do what we do because we care about you and the health services you receive. Early next year, we'll be seeking new governors in 3 public governor constituencies, Canterbury, Gravesham and Swale, and 1 new staff governor representing adult services. We'll be holding elections to fill these vacancies, so if you're interested in standing as a governor, please look out for further information from January 23. But remember, in order to stand as a governor, you need to be a member and live in the constituency you are standing for. I'm pleased to reflect the increasing opportunities that the Trust is offering for public participation. Some of these include attending and co-designing engagement and governance groups, interview panels, group discussions, co-designing and delivering training, designing patient information, quality improvement projects, we care and placed visits, and much, much more. Before I finish, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the small army of volunteers, staff and benefactors who've been working diligently through all weathers to bring the community hospital gardens back to life across the Trust. Thank you for listening.
Carol, thank you very much. So we're now going to move on to our Chief Exec's report. And I know there's a couple of films within this section. Mairead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Carol, and to all our governors who've supported us and continued to hold us to account during what has been another very tough year for our teams. The film we showed at the beginning and the animation you will see and the speeches from John and Carol hopefully give you a sense of what goes on behind the scenes in this organisation. And I hope also that you felt, as I did, the passion and dedication of our colleagues, volunteers and governors as they have reflected on 21-22. The challenge we faced in the NHS last year was nothing short of extraordinary. So you can see why I was really proud and excited to join this organisation on the 1st of July this year. I wanted to acknowledge my colleague Gordon Flack, who acted as Chief Exec prior to my appointment, and acknowledge that, although he can't be with us today. I want to talk a little bit about the journey and reflect on some of the remarkable achievements of the organisation, but also to share what I've heard from teams, patients and partners when I've been out and about and meeting people in the past 3 months. and then a little bit about where we go next. Thank you. So I'm just going to hopefully draw attention to some of the things you've already seen with a little bit more detail. That's a snapshot of some of the fantastic innovations that have happened in this organisation in the past 12 months. And firstly, I'm just going to reflect on the teams that have cared for our communities. I guess firstly, what I've been mostly impressed by is the people, the 5,000 colleagues that make up this organisation. They've reset services, started to tackle huge waiting lists, adapted to virtual consultations and home working, taken on extra shifts, stepped into unfamiliar roles when they needed to make sure patient care and satisfaction rates remain high. They began the financial year of 2021 at the height of the COVID vaccination programme, running 5 large-scale vaccination centres, lateral flow testing in full swing, and like the rest of the NHS, striving to innovate to find new ways to deliver high-quality care faster. As the lead employer for the vaccination programme, we weren't just supporting our centres, but our colleagues too. And by mid-May, the organisation was part of a Kent and Medway-wide system that had vaccinated more than 500,000 people. And it wasn't just clinical colleagues who stepped in. Our workforce team worked day and night to help fill more than 53,000 shifts, while our volunteers came from all walks of life to help. Quality improvement, as it is now, is at the heart of everything that the teams do, from projects to improve identification of children who are seriously unwell in our urgent treatment centres, to investing in new kit to reduce dental waiting lists safely, and be chosen as one of the 5 pilot sites in the country to run a new wound care programme. And just when our teams thought they couldn't give any more was always asked of them as they tackled increased pressures from new COVID variants like Delta and Omicron, which emerged at the start of the winter in 2021. In response to the Prime Minister's call to support the biggest, fastest booster vaccination campaign ever, the organisation took swift action to mobilise our teams and offer boosters to all by the end of January 2022. As a result, some colleagues for the second year running temporarily moved to support the vaccinations drive and prepared for a wave of increasing hospital admissions, as well as increasing the support to get people back home. While our public health and children's services held drive-through vaccination for school-age children who missed out on during their classroom lockdowns, and virtual visits for children with therapy needs. Thanks to the innovations of the previous year, Kent Community Health was well placed and prepared for the challenges. When the staff survey results came in, it was no shock to anyone to hear how battle-weary staff felt. I'm really clear that our colleagues are our most valuable asset in this organisation, and I would like to acknowledge the enormity of what they've managed day to day. And I can't move on without saying a heartfelt thank you for everything that you've done and continue to do. I thought it helpful to share some immediate reflections for the past 3 months. So firstly, since I've joined the organisation, I've received an incredibly warm welcome from colleagues, members, governors, volunteers, patients, carers and partners. I'm gradually making my way around all of the services, and the richness of these visits are all about understanding how it really feels out there. And it is vital to help us respond to the challenges that our team face every day and the experience of our patients. I wanted to particularly recognise the services that are not always so visible and patient-facing, because they are doing fantastic work behind the scenes and they keep services running smoothly and sometimes can get forgotten. There's so much innovation I see on my visits, teams finding creative ways to ensure they deliver exceptional care. This has not been easy, and we need to continue to use our quality improvement approach to ensure we stop undertaking non-value adding things that do not improve outcomes. This means really questioning how we do the work and making it easier to get things done by removing things that get in the way. There are very common themes and challenges emerging. We've heard them loud and clear. Workforce shortages, challenges in record keeping and access, not always feeling included, and compassionate leadership. They're entirely connected. One affects the other, so we have to address all of them. And I certainly intend that we keep these as a constant focus and set expectations on making the improvements required. So a little bit about where we are now, the national and local picture. So last week, our new Health Secretary unveiled the plan for patients and set out a number of new measures so that patients receive easier access to NHS and social care this winter and next. We know the things that concerns patients most at the moment, and these are predominantly around ambulance response times, backlogs in care, and access to GPs and dentists. While community services may not always be at the front and centre of these, I think there's a lot we can do to offer help. We can make healthcare provision much more accessible, and I think providing health and care as integrated teams in our neighbourhoods will enable us to develop teams with a rich skill mix that build on the success of a team model, offering great opportunities and, most importantly, building resilience into our local populations. This is much wider than physical health, which is why if we don't all work together to address housing, employment, isolation, and the wider determinants of health, we will continue to grow a sicker society. This has to be done with our residents as our partners. So I wanted to talk about how we might focus our commitments for our people, patients, and partners for the year ahead. The biggest thing I've heard from colleagues is about not having enough staff, and it's my commitment that remains a focus for the year ahead. We have a big programme of work to support recruitment, and we'll be asking colleagues to sit alongside us as part of that solution. We've welcomed new nurses from abroad to take the pressure off clinical teams and have recently been granted funding for allied health professionals from overseas. Whilst working through our clinical academy, we are helping to shape new careers and develop a rich skill mix of NHS professionals. The most impactful recruitment strategy, however, is when our staff who are embedded in our local populations talk positively about what it is like to work in healthcare. And we need to be bold in our adventures and think beyond traditional roles and organisational boundaries. Like many people, our staff have been hit hard by the cost of living crisis. We continue to review levels of support and have increased mileage allowance, launched new financial wellbeing services, funded the cost of the blue light card, agreed subsidised meals at local acute hospitals. We will continue to review a range of measures and support and offer help where we can, whilst recognising that this is a national issue. Last year, we launched our Nobody Left Behind strategy, working closely with staff networks to make sure all staff can bring their full selves to work. And we are about to embark on a piece of work to help to bring that strategy to life. We've also launched an Armed Forces community network, and we will soon see the launch of our 6th network to support colleagues who are neurodiverse. A big part of our focus will be to make sure we continue to lead with compassion and protect you. We've all experienced the biggest health crisis, and it has taken its toll on all of us. It's easy for those frustrations to play out in different ways when we can't get fast access we need. Unfortunately, some colleagues have also reported abuse from some service users, including racial abuse. This is absolutely not acceptable, and we'll take firm and appropriate action. Our staff are here to help, and we ask that they get treated with equal respect. Tackling health inequalities has been the single biggest thing highlighted in the pandemic, and a real struggle for our local populations. And as I've said, community services are well placed to turn the dial on health and well-being. We can only tackle the wider causes of ill health as a system, as I mentioned, by tackling housing, employment and isolation and the many other detriments. This will all have a huge impact when we work together. Our new Health and Equality Steering Group, made up of key partners, will set the direction. Many of our services are involved in initiatives to proactively engage those who are at the greatest risk of poor health outcomes. Our adult health improvement teams have a target to deliver health checks to 20% of the most deprived populations. Our rough sleeper service will deliver care directly to the homeless population, and our Thanet health visiting teams are working closely to support their local Roma communities. We will make every contact count and will work closely with our health and care partnership to do this. COVID recovery and waiting lists. So like the rest of the country, some of our waiting lists are much longer than we would like as a result of the pandemic. We're working really hard to find innovative solutions. An example, improving care for people with autism and learning difficulties. We're also looking at new models of care, and new models of care are important, to attract staff who are interested in innovative care, and we can't continue to do things the way we've always done. We know we have a tough winter ahead. We know we have many patients in hospital who don't need to be there, and we intend to build the capacity and find better solutions for them. As a community trust, we have a huge amount to contribute to supporting the acute trust, taking patients out of hospital and place them at home faster where they belong. Early intervention, either preventing admission and quick turnaround from the hospital front doors, gives our patients a much better rehabilitation potential. We are starting to prepare for winter. Indeed, we started that in the middle of the heat wave, which seemed surreal. We are working with partners to come up with the most innovative plans and the things that will be most impactful during winter. One way we'll be supporting this is building our successes on the work that we've done through COVID, such as our home virtual ward setup. We are leading in developing a virtual ward for people with acute respiratory infections at East Kent, working with acute partners, care homes, GP hospices, and developing virtual frailty wards led by our community geriatricians. And NHS England has asked systems to provide 40 to 50 virtual wards per 100,000 population by December 2023, which we are on track to do. Developing truly integrated services will be key. And this year we've also broken ground on the new Health and Wellbeing Centre at Edenbridge, as we work with GP colleagues to deliver community and primary care services all in one place. These are the examples that will make a real difference for our people by working with our partners. And finally, my first day on the job was also the first day of the new integrated care systems when they came into force. I've been really encouraged by the willingness of partners to work together. There are things where we need to come together as a system to deliver, and other where our priorities will be better serviced in partnerships at a neighbourhood level or as a collaborative with our mental health colleagues. We need to work together to offer an attractive place to work, to learn from each other, and we need buildings we can share which are sustainable and provide the best environment to provide care in a truly integrated way. I'm proud to be leading on behalf of the organisation, and we've delivered the Kent and Medway Care Record, a huge digital transformation that will give patients a joined-up view of their care. Finally, we know there will be challenges ahead: winter and flu, COVID numbers, the cost of living crisis, workforce and social care shortages, COVID recovery. But we've already demonstrated that we can rise to the challenges. And now what we need to do is ensure that our workforce is enabled to work in a way that has the highest impact, reduce unnecessary burdens that hold them back, and benefit from the partnership working created teams that wrap around the local communities. And let's make Kent and Medway the best place to work so that our residents get the best possible outcomes. I think I'm now going to hand us over for a short animation on our finances of how and where we spent the money in the past year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mairead. So now it's the formal part of our agenda. So I propose that we receive and formally adopt the annual accounts and the annual report for 2021/22. Everyone happy to approve that? Thank you. So that's our business, our formal business done for the day. So we're now going to move on to questions, and we've got a number of questions that we received prior to the meeting. So we're going to start with those, and then we've got questions I think that have come in via the chat room during our meeting, and we'll take those as well. So our colleague Julia is going to read out the questions, and then Mairead will allocate them accordingly to whoever she'd like to answer, or pass them on to one of our colleagues to answer. Julia.
Thank you very much, John. Yeah, we've got some questions that have come in advance. So a couple around workforce to start with. And the first one, what are you going to do to help to support the low paid staff at KCHFT in line with the cost of living crisis?
Thank you, Julia. And I think I'll pass over to Victoria to take that one.
Thanks, Mairead. So as you and John have already articulated in your presentations, we've been doing a huge amount over the past 12 months to ameliorate what is an unprecedented economic situation and the impact for all of our colleagues, not least at the lower end of the pay scale. It's clearly a difficult time. Fuel and energy prices are on the increase. Last year, we took our first steps towards accreditation and are now accredited as a UK living wage employer by committing to pay the real living wage, which we have continued to do so, and the assessment for this year is happening at the moment. And that's increased the wages of more than 200 of our colleagues at KCHFT. Additionally, as part of our wellbeing offer, we have introduced ways that our colleagues can access additional financial support. So there are a number of financial wellbeing apps called, one of them is called Wage Stream, and the other one is called Salad Money, where individuals can get financial advice and support, and also access to kind of small loans and advances on salary for emergency situations. The additional is an organisation called Salary Finance, and they're able to offer, again, different, whether it be savings, whether it be loans, whether it be financial advice, that's all available. We've also entered into a local arrangement for the increase of our mileage rates for our colleagues, and we use the RAC tracker tool to be able to use evidence base for us managing that mileage rate for the future to make sure that our staff are supported. On our staff intranet site, we do signpost to the many discounts that are available for all of our colleagues, and we also support via access for our staff to the blue light card, where they can access some of these health services discounts. John has already referenced as well a recent initiative that we are progressing forward in relation to a hardship fund supported through our staff charity, our organisational charity, to be able to support colleagues who are experiencing financial hardship. I think it's fair to say that the health and well-being of each and every one of our colleagues is a top priority, and we are delighted to have been rewarded with a Platinum Standard Award in the Kent and Medway Healthy Workplaces programme. We are the first NHS trust in Kent to be given this accolade, and actually in relation to all of the wellbeing interventions and cost of living interventions that we have brought forward to support our colleagues. And we actually compare really well, both regionally and nationally, with our NHS colleagues.
Thank you, Victoria. We've got another question, which is around how are we going to tackle the understaffing issue going forward?
Gosh, that's a big question, which probably warrants quite a big answer. So there's lots of different interconnecting parts to this one, I think. So the first one is how do we keep our great people that we have working for us staying with us, and that's how do we develop them? How do we make sure that we've got a clear plan in place to support their ongoing career and development? How do we maintain their psychological safety, their psychological contract, by ensuring key elements like inclusion, equity, respecting diversity, and ensuring that we lead with compassion. We shouldn't also forget the simple things that make coming to work easier. So things like what I've just talked about in relation to cost of living and well-being for our colleagues. The next thing, which Mairead has already touched on, is about how do we redesign roles for the future, particularly in relation to how we start to integrate services across traditional boundaries and move towards working around local populations in a more integrated way. And those new models of care will be what makes that professional aspect for our colleagues really, really interesting, and actually will make us a really attractive place to work, and will both now and in the future. We also need to ensure that our local populations can see the benefits of working in healthcare. It is really easy to focus on the things that don't work necessarily well, but there are many things that make working in the NHS brilliant, and actually keep many of our people here for a long period of time, which is fantastic. Helping us all realise that we've got the potential to help the next generation become interested in these roles through proactive engagement and through things like our own KCHFT Academy and the development of a system-wide Kent and Medway Academy, brings exposure to roles that people might not understand in the first instance by simply reading a job description. Recruitment is, of course, a national issue. We are facing this issue as are all NHS organisations. We've been working hard to promote the reasons why people would want to come and work in Kent and Medway, and also what KCHFT has to offer, making sure that that's an attractive offer in terms of development and progression, and also working in terms of how can we work strategically in terms of attracting different cohorts of individuals who might want to work in different types of healthcare settings. During the past year, we have recruited a significant number of international nurses. Many of those are already working in our community hospitals. We are now just welcoming our third cohort of a campaign to bring in 100 international nurses, in addition to the 19 that we welcomed as part of our initial pilot. You can read about Damalola Adesina, Temitope Adwumimi, and Yetunde Alo, Dami, Temi and Yeti, who are working at Victoria Hospital in Deal in our Community Health magazine. We've also received funding to help us recruit 25 allied health professionals internationally. They are clinicians who would support the therapy and rehabilitation needs of our patients and are absolutely critical to being able to deliver optimal healthcare now and in the future. In other difficult to recruit areas, we are looking at ways that we can support teams with the right mix of skills to be able to deliver patient care. One of those is our task and finish group to be able to support how do we bring in our colleagues like domestics, facilities operatives to be able to support, because they are actually the lifeblood of the organisation and we can't deliver our services without them. A dozen new AHP apprentices, so allied health professional apprentices, officially started their courses. They do their education all at the same time as working for the Trust in trainee roles. They're working towards full qualification in 4 years from the University of East London and Canterbury Christchurch University. It's really important that we recruit across pathways, so we are working with our colleagues at health and care partnership level, as well as supporting the development of the system-wide workforce plan, and as I've already mentioned, the development of the Kent and Medway Academy. This is an issue that not only impacts on patient care, but also the health and well-being of our colleagues, so it's absolutely vital that we get this right.
Thank you, Victoria. You mentioned job descriptions in there, and I think we've got a question in the chat from Jill Haskell. With recruitment, are we reviewing our job descriptions, which are extremely generic and not profession specific?
There had been a significant piece of work to look to streamline the job descriptions and bring a sense of consistency across the organisation. That said, it is recognised that that can make attracting individuals difficult because there is a bespoke element or a particular specialist element to a role that makes that really attractive. To appeal to those who really want to kind of take an area of specialism forward. We have undertaken a huge piece of work within our recruitment team and also in conjunction with our operational colleagues over the last 12 months to look at how can we strategically support attraction and development into some of those specialist areas. So that does include revision of our adverts and job descriptions where that's appropriate.
Has the Trust got plans to introduce the NHS Reservist Initiative launched earlier this year?
Thanks, Julia. So for those that aren't already aware, an NHS reservist is someone who is passionate about patient care, working with diverse teams, and is somebody who can be flexible and help the NHS during peak times and emergencies. So a perfect example is our COVID pandemic and the really swift mobilisation of our vaccination centres to be able to swiftly mobilise at speed. A reservist might be a former healthcare professional or someone who is even working in healthcare outside of the NHS. Some of our teams who worked on our COVID vaccination programme were supported by reservists through our bank programme who wanted to help their local NHS. The National NHS Reservists team does contact us as a Kent and Medway system when they have people who might want to join, and as a system we then work with the national team to help reservists experience the range of NHS career opportunities that are available. And that includes elements around return to practice as well as the development of a collaborative bank across Kent and Medway.
Thank you. We've got a question from Jayanti, who I think wanted to ask this question herself. So if Jayanti wants to pose the question, she could come off mute.
Hi, thank you. I think my question was with regards to having leadership for the AHP. I know 60% of the trust have a chief AHP. And I think we heard earlier in the discussion with regards to health inequality, and not having a leadership itself can create inequality in the leadership system wide and cause disadvantage to certain profession. So I think my question from the board was, do we have any plans, and if there is a plan, when and how?
Yeah, I can answer that one, Jayanti, and thank you for the great question. You'll probably know that there is new national guidance on the role of AHPs and their connection to the board. So we're currently revising and reviewing that guidance in relation to how we can make that connection directly to the trust board. I'd expect to have an outline to our approach in the next month, because we are particularly reviewing how we obviously deliver rehabilitation. And I also would say that, and you'll know this, that AHPs are critical to the success of the long-term plan. So we will require a different approach to do from what we're doing currently. But we do have really good foundations to build on. So I think it's a particularly exciting time for AHPs, and there's real opportunities coming, and we'll share that with you in due time.
Thank you. We've got a couple of hands up. So I was going to go to Marion Keats if she'd like to ask her question next.
Thank you very much. I'm going back to quite early on in this session when you mentioned being kind and caring. And I will give you some examples of that. But I really believe that the leadership is what counts to enable staff to be kind and caring. And I'm sure you're working on that. I have recent experience of cardiac rehab. I live in Folkestone. I've had 2 lots of sessions with them. Unfortunately, I can't remember the particular people who were particularly helpful, but they're really enthusiastic and very, very reassuring when you're actually scared to run a little bit or anything. So that was good. And the other one that I'm now on is the classes for posture and stability, also in Folkestone. And there are two ladies there, and I'm going to name them because they are brilliant. One is Teresa McTaggart, and the other one is Sue Chapman. Now, they run these classes, and they are so cheerful, so helpful, very reassuring. Don't do more than you can, be careful, hold on, all these kind of things. And they say them week after week, minute after minute, and help us learn. And, you know, I'd like to see those two ladies mentioned somewhere as a result of this meeting, which would be quite a shock to them, I'm sure, but they are good.
Marion, can I say thank you for calling that out? And I'm sure those staff will really appreciate that acknowledgement. That is greatly appreciated, and it's really lovely to acknowledge that publicly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I've got a question now that's been submitted by Ruth Chambers. How does the Trust make sure the programmes and improvements it is making do not duplicate similar work done in other trusts?
So I think we need to say we're very well connected across organisations in multiple ways. There are mechanisms for sharing what we do, what works well, and indeed what hasn't worked well, so that we don't repeat it. As part of the Kent and Medway Integrated Care System, we also work with NHS and council partners on service and projects where we've got shared responsibilities and interests. And we make sure we maximise the benefits of that for the people that we serve. As part of the system, which includes health and care partnerships and primary care networks, we also work closely together to decide which priorities are best delivered across health and care partnerships. So basically, what works better more locally or at a system level. Learning is shared locally, regionally, and nationally, depending on the scale of the programmes. And of course, always important to call out that the clinical care that we deliver is evidence-based.
Thank you, Mairead. So next question is from Pat Keneally. Why is there still an East-West Kent divide? It would surely make more sense from a staffing and patient safety point of view to have a common approach to service delivery.
And I'll ask Pauline to take that one, if that's okay.
Certainly. Yeah, it is a good question, and we do still have some variation. And I think that whilst we want to make sure that we reduce any unwarranted variation, very much the direction we're going in is working with our healthcare partnerships, both at East and West Kent level, to develop services that meet the needs of the population. And I think what's been really helpful for us recently is that we've worked with NHSIE, who've also worked with a company called Lightfoot to really look in detail at what the local populations need and what our response should be. So whilst we will always aim to try and reduce any unwarranted variation, there will actually sometimes be a case for us to have some different services. Don't know, Gerard, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think briefly that sometimes if there's a need for the same care for patients, we have got specialist hubs. So as an example, surgical podiatry services located in Maidstone is available for anyone who needs it. So you get the right professionals and healthcares in the right place working together that are fully equipped, and they can see patients from across the county on the same day. So there's examples of that as well, where we're taking that approach.
Thank you. So the next question is from Reg Connell, and he asked, how far in advance do we plan in the NHS?
Well, in theory, we plan at least 5 years in advance, but in practice, right.
Yeah, nicely passed over. Thank you, Chair. So yes, we do normally plan 5 years in advance, but I think if the last 2 years has shown us anything, those plans do change quite substantially. So the review of the plans is just as important as the forward plan. I think it's important to have short, medium and long-term plans within the sort of the wider overarching strategy, but not be complacent. And I think I would really call out that review And if, as I say, if anything we've learned in the last 2 years, we've had to adapt pretty quickly to the plans that were in place that radically changed overnight.
Thank you, Mairead. Next question is from Michael Townsend, and it's around place inspections and when they're starting again, and perhaps describe what they are for the people who won't know what they are.
Ali, are you happy to take that?
Of course. So a place inspection is a patient-led assessment of the clinical environment. And during the pandemic, unfortunately, we were unable to invite volunteers and patient participation into the place inspections. However, we did carry on those during the pandemic, and they were called Place Light. I'm delighted to say that we have started them again this month, our full place inspections, and we've started them in Faversham, and we have a plan to carry out place inspections in all of our clinical units going through till December. And we've managed to recruit 25 patient assessors to help us in our plight. 3 members of staff from KMPT, so the Mental Health Trust, 4 public and staff governors, 5 members of the Learning Disability Group, and 13 participation partners will be helping us with our assessments.
Thank you, Ali. We have a couple of questions next around, we've mentioned virtual wards, which maybe if we take those together. So Maria Turtle has asked about the kind of time frame for virtual wards, but Linda in the chat has also asked, can you just explain what are virtual wards, and also how are we going to reach out to the elderly who do not use technology and expect to be able to see a doctor?
Colin, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, happy to take that. So if we start with what a virtual ward is, a virtual ward is where someone would be looked after in their own home or in a care home, where they would normally need to be admitted for consultant-led care. That happens by a mixture of things, by advanced nurse practitioners, geriatricians, the GPs working together. In some instances, we might use technology so that we can monitor people and they can monitor themselves and submit results of how they're doing. And we've actually already had virtual wards up and running during COVID. We had the home treatment service in West Kent, led by a geriatrician. And then during COVID, we had the frailty service that started to run in East Kent. So we're starting from a really good base with this, that we can build on both of those services clearly, support the frailty pathway. The aim is for us to have 40 to 50 beds in the virtual ward per 100,000 population, and we are on track to deliver that. In East Kent, we're also going to be delivering a respiratory virtual ward alongside the frailty, and we'll be working with MTW, Maidstone Tunbridge Wells Acute Trust, to deliver the respiratory pathway in West Kent. So in relation to people who feel that they wouldn't want to be using technology, there are different ways of delivering the service. Every service isn't reliant on somebody being technically savvy, and so that would be patient by patient, and it would be patient-centred.
Oh. Can I just chip in on that? I was with a group of over 60s yesterday, and a couple of them raised the issue of virtual wards, and I think it was the title that put them off, because virtual almost initiates that fear of technology, and they were. And I was trying to reiterate what Pauline just said, but the fact that we're calling them virtual wards is quite off-putting to a lot of the elderly population.
And just to add to that, some of the technology that's used is not so much about somebody being able to log on or access technology themselves. Some of it's about wearables. So things that you just have to wear, and then all of that information just gets passed on. You don't actually have to do anything. So as I say, it would be very patient specific, and we would make sure that we consider the needs of every individual patient as we place them into a virtual service.
Thank you. The next question is from Brenda Fathers. Sittingbourne Memorial Hospital, why is this venue no longer open as a walk-in vaccination centre, with the nearest being Gillingham or Laysdown on the Isle of Sheppey?
Do you want to?
Yeah, happy to answer that. Thank you. So we remain lead employer for the vaccination programme, but NHS Kent and Medway ICB determine the best locations and providers of the vaccines. You are correct, Sittingbourne Memorial Hospital is no longer available as a walk-in vaccination service, but your GP and local pharmacy should be able to advise how you access that.
Thank you. One question from the chat from Linda. There are people on the Isle of Sheppey with real difficulties of getting to our hospitals, such as Medway. Can local hospitals take on more services?
Right.
Yeah, so I guess the question back is what are we referring to when we're talking about local hospitals? The straightforward answer is, of course, part of the new development of care closer to home is to provide as much care as possible in your local area, for example, via community primary care type hub, which is part of the community diagnostics programme, etc., etc. So where that care can be delivered, there are huge developments at providing that more locally. In terms of acute care, obviously, the main hospitals are the main hospitals. So I guess that's configured in the way that it is currently. But I think if you're referring to the local diagnostics and access, then there is tremendous work going on around that integrated work around diagnostics, etc., as I've just mentioned. So hopefully that has answered the question, if I've got that right.
Thank you, Mairead. Last submitted question, I believe, this is from Jill, talking about Rio, our patient information system. Is Rio able to keep a record of the videos to help with keeping accurate records?
I answer that. So there's a working group to look at the functionality of Rio and look at it specifically in relation to how our clinical colleagues are using Rio. I don't think that we have that functionality at the moment, but that is something that they're currently working on to see if it's available.
I think we have answered everybody's questions, unless we wanted to go and ask if there's anyone who is online who wants to ask any more questions live. I believe we've been through all of the questions that have been submitted and I can't see any more hands up.
Thanks, Julia. Shall we just pause for a few seconds to see if any, somebody put their hand up.
Linda, a hand up. She wants another question.
Yeah, my neighbour goes to Medway for dialysis. You sometimes send an ambulance and sometimes send a taxi, which is costing you an awful lot of money. Is there no possibility of having dialysis treatment nearer to home? I mean, is that something that might be considered, like either in Sittingbourne or on Sheppey?
So we don't provide the dialysis service in this organisation, but what I would say is where it makes sense to provide care closer to home, those services are being developed, and that is all part of the Health and Care Partnership working and doing as much as possible outside of the hospital. So I'm not in a position to answer it because we don't provide the service. I can just provide a general answer on the fact that local care is a work in progress and part of the Health and Care Partnership priorities.
That would be great, because he has to give up, well, all of the day just to go to Medway 3 times a week, which is quite an awful lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can see that, and I can see where that might make sense.
And it also costs you a lot of money, or the National Health, a lot of money in transporting him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Apologies, there's one question at the beginning from Ruth, who actually asked us to explain what is a non-executive director, please.
Wow, I could ask one of my non-executive directors to answer that. Pip.
So thank you. So a non-executive director. So every NHS board is made up of executive directors and non-executive directors. It's not such a strange question because I've actually had to give a presentation on this to staff over the years that I've been a NED. So the executive directors are full-time members of staff who report up to the chief. Non-executive directors come from a range of backgrounds, help to challenge, support and develop the organisation. They're very part-time. The idea is that they will come in and support the board with wider experience. So you here have got a range of different non-executives from finance, HR, business, clinical, a whole range of different backgrounds, all of whom offering their expertise and input to the organisation. Hopefully that's given you an idea.
Thanks very much, Pippa. Sorry for putting you on the spot. I was just looking around the pillar and I saw you and I thought, I'm sure you would give an excellent answer, and you did. Thank you. Any final questions, Julia?
I can't see any more questions in the chat or hands up. If there are any questions, and obviously people can submit them to us, and the answers to all of the questions will be on our website.
So thank you. We've done our business for today. I hope you've stayed with us throughout our 85 minutes that we've had our annual general meeting and annual members meeting. I was particularly taken by the pace of the second and the third film, particularly the film on finance, and actually the music and its pace sort of resonated with me in terms of the pace of life that our staff have in terms of their work, and I thought that was just accorded with me in terms of the pace of life. And I think that it's really important that we do finish with a thank you, because it has been this is the third time we've said, I think I've said this, we say it's a tough year, and it has been for the last two or 3 years, and tough for different reasons. So, we've had COVID, we've had the impact, in effect, on the economy from the war in Korea. We've had that exacerbated for a whole load of other reasons in terms of the economic crisis and the cost of living crisis, which we have today. And superimposing all of that, it's hard for our staff. I think we also obviously have to appreciate how hard it is for the people that we see, treat and care, and the population of Kent and Medway. But, I'd like to give thanks to the people that we see, treat and care. Sorry, sometimes you have to wait a bit longer than you should for the care and diagnosis that you need. Special thanks to our staff, but also thank you to our governors and to our board members around the table, non-executive directors and our chief executive and executive directors. Thank you very much for everything that you do. And I look forward to seeing you all again on the 20th of September 2023 for our next annual general meeting. But of course, look forward to meeting you over the year, over the ensuing years. So with that, just to remind everyone that this recording will be put on our website as soon as we can. If when you listen and watch the recording, you've got a question, please email it in and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And with that, I'm going to close the meeting, and thank you very much for your questions as well, members of the public and governors. Thank you.